All right. So the Master and Keshab are in a conversation here tonight, and for us ordinary folks, if you don't mind me referring to us as ordinary folks, she Mother has some beautiful things to say tonight that we'll probably be afraid to to believe, but let's see where it takes us. This is Thakur talking, and he's talking to one of the Brahmo devotees right now. The Brahmo Samaj was kind of course, my saying what the Brahmo Samaj is going to get me in trouble. But there was this move sort of toward westernizing Hindu thought under the guise of modernizing it to compete with Christianity, because Christianity was being pushed quite heavily by the British, and a lot of the young Hindus were being converted, or at least being disillusioned with their own religion because of the way it was being presented to them. And so the Brahmo Samaj was Keshab Chandra Sen kind of was leading it, and it was sort of a modernization of Hinduism, where they said, okay, there's no God with form, so God is only formless. And it began. They had their weekly meetings. It started taking on a lot of the characteristics of Christianity, and but it was a sincere movement. I mean, it was a sincere movement toward the divine. Keshab was in charge, and the master and Keshab were very close, very, very intimate. And yeah, so it's an interesting thing that they were together, that they were happening at the same time.
Did he leave? Did he ever leave the Brahmo Samaj organization?
Who, Keshab?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he ever left it. It ended up splitting at one point. It's still around even today, but very small. It's not a significant movement these days. But no, he stayed with it, and actually we get to see his passing away in the gospel toward the end, when the master goes to see him, and is very. It's a beautiful scene actually. When we get there, it's a beautiful encounter between Master and Keshab when Keshab is on his deathbed. All right, so he's talking to one of the Brahmo devotees at this point, and he's saying to him, it is as if the Divine Mother said to the human mind in confidence, with a sign from her eye, which means like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing, go and enjoy the world. How can one blame the mind? The mind can disentangle itself from worldliness if, through her grace, she makes it turn toward herself. Only then does it become devoted to the lotus feet of the Divine Mother. So that's an interesting thing. It's part of the play, part of the Leela. You read something like this, and it's quite comforting, because he really nails the experience of being, doesn't he? I mean, it's we're never quite fully
Mhm.
centered and fully content and understanding and stable. We've always got a counter thought going somewhere, or a counter idea happening, or a disgruntled mind, or a bad mood, or or we get it all together and somebody rams our car in a parking space. It's just these weird things. And he says it's as if the Divine Mother said to your mind with a wink, oh, go and enjoy the world. Yeah. And it's funny 'cause the master also does that. He winks at M at one point and says, why don't you go enjoy, have some fun, you and your wife together, and he laughs as he sends him off.
I mean,
And of course, huh?
is that like saying to a child, if you want to touch the burner on the stove, go, I've told you 20 times not to, but if you want to, go ahead. Is that like that? Like,
Well, in its extreme, it's like that, but it's more playful than that. He's more telling him, why don't you go play with Dad's television set, which won't hurt you, but you'll have fun with it, but you'll get in trouble later. So yeah, that's what the winking is about. It's she's teasing, and this world is kind of a tease in her play. She makes all of these things so beautiful, and you go to grab them, and they're not there. That's the problem. The world is illusory, and that's very hard to stay convinced of. Even if you get convinced of it for a moment, somehow that scum covers that pond again, and we're right back at it. And so it seems what mother's doing here is she's holding you on her lap for a minute and saying, yes, I understand. And she does understand. She's intimately aware of the struggle of life for us and the frustrations that we go through, and yeah, all of these things. But she's very reassuring. So she says the mind can disentangle itself from worldliness. So it is possible. You don't have to be divided. You don't have to bear the duality in your mind. And she says, but it's through grace. It's through her grace that it happens, that she makes it turn toward herself. Only then does it become devoted to the lotus feet of the Divine Mother. And the way that I read this, the way that I understand this, and if you feel differently, speak up, please, because I like different ideas. But that it's through grace, which means it's through our understanding of grace. It's through our familiarity of Mother's grace that it says that she turns the mind to devotion to her lotus feet, which is really, it's the same way as saying that God cursed Adam and Eve, telling them that, because you have chosen to live in the senses and define yourself by your bodies, now you're leaving paradise. It's not really because God kicked them out of the garden as such. It's because you can't enjoy the bliss, the divine bliss of the divine inside you, if you're not paying attention to it and you're looking outside of the garden for your pleasures and for your enjoyments. And so it's more just a natural consequence of making the choices that Adam and Eve made that caused them to have to leave paradise and had to cause them to till at the dust of the earth for their enjoyments for as long as they chose to live like that. So even though it's called a curse, and even though God is blamed for throwing them out of the garden, in reality, from another perspective, it was really just following the normal course of things. You can't serve two masters. You can't sit in the shrine within and enjoy the bliss of God and be constantly having your mind chase after pleasures and enjoyments and fun and whatnot out there.
Swami,
And
can
so,
I the grace?
what's that?
I think that to me, grace is such a weird word, because to me, grace is like sunshine. It's
Uh-huh.
always there. Just move out of the shade and you'll
That's
be
it.
in the sun. So it's not like you get some grace and you don't, I mean, I think that's how it works. I could be like wrong, totally wrong.
Well,
Um,
yeah, it's a hard call because these scriptures, especially the ones we're going to read here tonight, could be interpreted that way, that mother either gives you a little or doesn't give you, either gives it or withholds it from you. And you probably could make a very solid argument for seeing it that way, but then you're going to have an issue, which I'm not comfortable with, and that is mother being responsible for your sin or your failure. And that could be that it's I just get nervous, and that's not necessarily a sign that it's not true. When she says that that I suffer for my actions alone, that can only really remain true if she's not the one sitting there being stingy with grace. So I think that you're right. I think Mother's grace is like the sun. It's always present. But again, if you're not sitting in it, if you're not going outside, like literally like your mother growing up, you're sitting in there watching Tom and Jerry, and it's a beautiful sunny day outside. And every time she walks through the family room, she's like, why don't you boys get outside and enjoy the sunshine? Get out of the house, turn off that television. That's exactly what Mother's up to. That's exactly what she's saying here. That your mind can turn toward God if you would enjoy the sun, if you would step into her grace, if you would contemplate that, if you would believe that, if you would have faith in that, and become intimate with that idea. Then through that intimacy, we transcend, because we fall in love with the mother. That's what grace does. Grace makes you fall in love. If someone is so continually so kind to you, continually bringing you little sweet nothings for no reason, expecting nothing in return from you for it, and enjoying and encouraging you for the slightest nonsensical thing that you have to offer in return. The heart loves that, because that's a sign of our nature. It's a reminder of what is the truth when we're free. When we're not convinced by the limitations of body mind, we are infinitely generous. We are infinitely kind. We are infinitely compassionate. That is what we are, and that is what the Divine Mother is. And so she's saying that it's through knowing this grace, through accepting this grace, through assuming this grace, and keeping your mind immersed in this sweet love of the divine, this unconditioned love, that it's through that our mind gets turned and falls at the sweet lotus feet of the Divine Mother. So whereupon Sri Ramakrishna, taking upon himself, as it were, the agonies of all householders, sang a song complaining to the Divine Mother. So here he's taking our side. He's sitting here saying, yes, I'm not unaware of the challenges. But he sings the song, Mother, this is the grief that sorely grieves my heart, that even with thee for mother, and though I am wide awake, there should be robbery in my house. You see what he's saying there? It's like, even though I have discerned and I've seen the uselessness of this world, I've seen how it cannot give me any permanent satisfaction, and it only keeps making me hungry for more, and that everything has a treadmill in front of it, like we talked this morning. He says that even though I do my practice, I go to temple, I try and control myself, I study the scriptures, I try and do everything right, and yet there's still robbery in my house. I mean, my growth is being robbed. My advancement is being robbed. I'm stuck in this whirlpool because of this. That there should be robbery in my house. Many and many a time I vow to call on you, right? I try. I'm constantly making vows. I'm constantly saying, okay, from here on forward, I'm going to do my practice every day exactly at this time. I'm not going to miss it again. I'm going to be self-controlled. Many and many a time I will vow to call on you. Yet when the time for prayer comes around, I forget. I've forgotten. Now I see it is all your trick, right? Now I see, Mother. It's all your trick. It's your play, your beguiling way of winking and nudging and saying, go play, go go have fun. And so it takes the severity away from it also. And I think that's what Thakur is saying. He's like, look, don't learn to hate yourself by being eternally frustrated with your inability to be what you want to be, to do what you want to do. Understand that you're driving a freight train. You're not driving a scooter. So turning left in a freight train takes some planning. You've got your samskaras behind you, and Mother understands this. Mother is connected with you, even if you're being beguiled by the play. Mother is not cursing you. Mother is still present with you and playful with you, teasing you. And so when you have a fall, or when you disappoint yourself in that way, you don't have to own that as being descriptive of you, because you're not the body mind. That failure belongs to body mind. And you can take refuge in Mother still, and you can know that she's playful, she's teasing, she's sporting with you. And so take that confidence, take that permission. You can sport back, you can complain back. If that, you can see that's what Ramakrishna is doing here. He's sporting right back with her. As thou hast never given, so thou receivest not. Am I to blame for this, Mother? Hadst thou, I'm going to give it normal English. I can't stand this old English stuff. Had you but given, surely then you would have received. Out of your own gifts I would have given to you. Glory and shame, bitter and sweet, they are yours alone. This world is nothing but your play. Then why, O blissful one, do you cause such a rift in it? So that Thakur is saying, Ma, if you enlightened me and I saw you in everything, you would get my worship, you would get my devotion, you would own my everything. If you would just give me something to give to you. I tell that story of going to you go shopping as a kid for Father's Day or Mother's Day or any day, and mother gives you $10 to buy your dad a Father's Day gift. There's an absurdity in that. But what do? You take that $10, you turn it into love by picking out something you think your father would like to have, or your mother, or whatever you're giving to. And so this is what he's complaining. He's like, you can't send me into this beautiful big shopping center and not give me $10 to buy you something. If you don't, no wonder I get caught up in mischief running around in this big store, you know. So why do you do this? Why do you cause such a rift in it? Says Ram Prasad, you have bestowed on me this mind. You've given me this. If everything is God, where am I? How can you blame me for making a choice if there's no me? Quite clearly, this is your setup. And with a knowing wink of your eye, that's that playfulness, of mother with the knowing wink. So she's very familiar, very fully, she knows completely what she's up to. It's not like any of this is accidental. And with a knowing wink of your eye, you have bidden it at the same time to go and enjoy the world. And so I wander here. I'm forlorn through your creation, blasted, as it were, by someone's evil glance, taking the bitter for the sweet, taking the unreal for the real. So it's his complaint to the mother. And this is a great thing. You can complain to the Divine Mother. You can yell at her. You can have a big old fight and throw something at her if you want, Great. So don't do it because I told you, but feel free to fully engage with the divine. Don't feel like you have to hold your tongue or hold your words or behave in a particular way, because God is your very own. She is the only existence which is your very own in this world. Nothing else has any substance to it. And so fight your fight, make your claim, state your pain, your argument. Thakur says, take some of that tamasic devotion and demand your inheritance early. And he says, of course, it's an Indian tradition where I guess at some age or something, the child gets his inheritance while the parents are still living. And Thakur says, demand your inheritance early. And if you demand enough, and if you're annoying enough in demanding it, you'll get your inheritance early. So demand these things from the Divine Mother. Don't just be mealy-mouthed about failure and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And oh gosh, why can't I? And why can't I? And why can't I? Get some oomph in there. Stand up for yourself. Say, look, if you want these things from me, if you give me these things and you give me a mind that feels so horrible, you have to, it's your responsibility to give me enlightenment. You hold all the cards in this game. What am I? I have nothing. I can't even argue fairly with you. Even these words right now are your words. How can I fight this battle? Please, at least be reasonable, and in your mercy, touch me, show me something, help me, give me a little peace, give me a little love. I just can't go on like this, So make your statement and go to the mother. And she's willing. She will. With faith and with perseverance in your argument, you'll get your inheritance early, quite possibly. The master continued, men are deluded through her Maya and have become attached to the world. Says Ram Prasad, you have bestowed on me this mind, and with a knowing wink of your eye, have bidden it at the same time to go and enjoy the world. So she has placed that tendency in us. But really, what is that tendency? We want her only, right? So that tendency comes from wanting God. We're just confused about what God is. We're confused about what we're missing. We're confused about what we're ignorant about. And so we go running after things, calling it Ma. Remember that little, I don't know if it was a Dr. Seuss story. I think it was a Dr. Seuss story. Are you my mother? Do you remember that? The little bird gets hatched, I think the egg falls out of the nest or something. This little bird hatches. And for the rest of the book, he's going to all manner of animals and like, are you my mother? And the lizard says, no, I'm not your mother. Look at me. I've got scales. You've got feathers. And he goes around, and by the end of the book, he finds his mother. And so really, oddly enough, our life is a Dr. Seuss book. We're running around to all these objects of enjoyment. Are you my mother? Are you going to make me happy? Are you going to give me pleasure? Are you going to make my life better? We go to all of these things, and mother knows, she's watching, and she's enjoying, as us, even, she's not sitting off at some demon laughing at some child burning his hand on the wood stove. It's not like that. But she's enjoying the fun of the search because she knows nobody's getting hurt. She knows everybody comes home. She knows that you're not the body and mind, and that the suffering you're having is because you think that you are. So she lets you play. She lets you run around and do your business, do your story.
Maharaj
Yes.
reminds me of the story where a lady devotee went to see mother and took Golapma for mother.
Yes.
And they both were pointing at each other.
I know. That is so funny, and it's so mean at the same time because like the poor woman looking like an idiot, unable to tell which one is the Divine Mother, and they're just having fun with her, sending her back and forth. Everybody know that story? Yeah. Oh, this woman comes to meet the mother for the first time, and the mother's sitting on one side of the room, and Golap Ma is sitting on the other side of the room, and the woman comes in and doesn't know who's the Divine Mother. And so, she goes to Golap Ma, and Golap Ma is like, "You fool! That's the mother over there, over there." So she goes to Holy Mother to bow down, and Holy Mother says, "Oh, she's just pulling your leg. She's the Holy Mother. She's the Divine Mother." So she goes back and forth a couple of times, and then Golap Ma just really lets her have it because Golap Ma, she had a little bit of fire in her. She's like, "What kind of fool are you that you can't tell the Holy Mother, the Divine Mother of the universe, from a common old woman like me? Get over there." That's the Divine Mother. And that's how it is. That's also another good example. Thanks, Kamal. That's a great example of mother playing at our expense, but harmlessly. Harmlessly. So this Brahmo devotee that he's having a conversation with, he turns to him and he says, "Sir, can't we realize God without complete renunciation?" This is embarrassing because if there's anybody in the gospel that's me, this boy right here, it was me in my last life. It's like, isn't there an easy way? Can't we? I don't like this renunciation thing. Isn't there some other way we can do this? And what's great is look what Thakur says. This is amazing. Master with a laugh. Okay, so it's framed with a laughter. It's framed with a chuckle. And he says to him, "Of course you can. Why should you renounce everything?" You're reading this, you're kind of wondering, is this mother kind of winking her eye and saying, "Yeah, go play in the world." It's like, of course you can. Why should you renounce everything? You are all right as you are, following the middle path, like molasses, partly solid and partly liquid. Do you know the game of knacks? It's an Indian card game. The object is to stay in the game by scoring under 17 points. Anyone scoring 17 points has to retire. Okay, so that's the game. Oh, here comes Bindu, just a moment. So he says, you're all right as you are, following the middle path, like molasses, partly solid and partly liquid. Do you know the game of knacks? Having scored the maximum number of points, I'm out of the game. I can't enjoy it. But you are very clever. Some of you have scored 10 points, and some 6, and some 5. You have scored just the right number, so you're not out of the game like me. The game can go on. Why, that's fine. And everybody laughs. You see, it is fine. This world, you can enjoy this world. You can. Yes, we pay for it. We pay for it. But just, but not not in the sense of a meanness or a punishment. He's like, yes, keep your eyes open and live your life. Be aware of how things affect you, but live your life. Don't live in fear. Don't be afraid. Don't live in shame and remorse and all of those things. Don't bury yourself by holding on to your faults and your mistakes. Learn from them. Continue to do the best you can, but don't stress out. Don't flip out. Just keep Mother's grace in your mind. Just keep the love of God in your mind and go forward. It'll work out. Just being in the presence of the Mother is going to make it work out. And all of this is framed in Thakur's promise to us. Everyone's coming home. Everyone. And when everybody gets here, everybody's going to have a great laugh about the whole darn thing. It's going to be as funny as can be. And you're going to sit around telling stories about your dream. And everybody's going to laugh and be familiar with exactly what you're saying. Oh my God, totally. I get it. Oh my God, I had the same problem. I spent 14 lifetimes trying to figure that out. So he says, you've scored just
Could I
the right
interrupt?
number. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to share something that relates directly to what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
And also the question earlier, I forgot who asked it. There was a gospel passage that confirmed your take. I forgot what the exact point was, but I'll reread the gospel passage. It was about grace. I
Uh-huh.
read this earlier today and I took a screenshot because I was so moved by it.
Beautiful.
It starts with M saying, "Yes, sir. You always ask us to plunge into God. Master, joyously. Yes, that's it. Let me tell you that the realization of self is possible for all, without any exception. M. That is true, sir, but God is the doer. He works through different beings in different ways according to their capacity to manifest the divine. God gives to some full spiritual consciousness, and others he keeps in ignorance. Master. No, that is not so. One should pray to God with a longing heart. God certainly listens to prayer if it is sincere. There's no doubt about it. It's a really interesting passage
It is.
because he just shuts down that argument that M puts forward. You see,
Right.
I feel like I connect with M's point because after staying with Ramakrishna, you think, oh yes, God does to some and not to others. Yes, I'm so smart. I really understand what the master's saying, and and the master's like, no, like, not what you think. It's very
Right.
curveball because I interpreted Thakur's teachings in that light too for months, and like reading that passage dismantled my ideas about it.
Right. Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit in it because nothing is ever absolute. I mean, it's Mother's game and she gets to play if she wants to play. I think probably the truth is more along the lines of where you're at when you think about it. If like I would imagine that when M made that statement, he was seeing himself, he was seeing an out. Oh, I'm like this because God does this. And so he was, in a sense, giving himself a permission to be lax or to be where he was without feeling any need to really do anything about it. And I imagine that it's that the master was putting him against the wall for, because if you accept this, if you are content with being where you are, and you are drawing close to the Divine Mother and enjoying your walk with her and being sincere in your life, then it works for mother to be the one in charge, because you're not taking advantage of her. You're not playing the game against her, you know. And so I imagine that the teaching is a little bit more subtle than just saying, no, you're responsible, God's not. You have to figure it out, be responsible, get to it. I think it's more like God is, because you see Thakur giving opposite instructions to people at different times based on who they are as a person. I can never remember names, but remember there was two instances of two of Ramakrishna's disciples. One of them was sitting in a boat getting a ride across the river and heard people started bad mouthing Ramakrishna, who wasn't present. Ramakrishna was somewhere else, but this devotee was hearing it, and I think it was Niranjan. He got so incensed, he got up and he said, "How dare you speak about the saint like that? I will sink this boat right here and right now if you don't apologize." Everybody's freaking out because they don't swim, and they apologize. Then we get the exact same story, and I think it might be Shardadananda or somebody. Greg, if you were there and which you know all these things, please help me.
Yogananda.
Yogananda, okay, thank you. Thank you for not having me go on recordings making a mess of everything. But that's my argument with mother. I mean, it's, all right, Ma, you just gave me a basket for a mind. It's not a filing cabinet. It's just a basket. Everything's just sort of all in there. So Yogananda is in there and he hears the same thing, or another situation, but the same story. The people are bad mouthing the master and he doesn't say anything about it. And when he goes and tells the master jumps on him. Like, how can you just sit there and not say anything when somebody's bad mouthing your guru? Whereas Niranjan's disposition was erring in the opposite direction. He was being just a little bit too protective, to the point where he was willing to literally kill people for speaking against Ramakrishna. So you see, the master does sometimes give opposite teachings based on a person's disposition. And I imagine there's a little bit of this going on in this teaching, this idea. Is it mother who has the grace and she gives it sometimes to some and to others and sometimes not? Or is it that mother's grace is always available and it's us who either takes it or doesn't take it at the time? And I think that both are true. And in our dispositions, we are inclined to take one or the other, and so I think that's probably where the real discernment lies. It's making sure that, yes, mother's love is everywhere present and her grace has got you completely covered. If you use that as a rope of inspiration to grow in your love and to grow in your devotion and your gratitude toward the divine, to literally fall in love because of it, then yes, that is the truth for you. That is a safe truth for you. That's the right teaching for you. But if you're the person who, might be inclined to be like, mother will change me when she feels like it. I'm just going to sit here and eat popcorn for the moment, for this life. I'm just going to kick back and wait for her to be gracious. If we have that kind of disposition, then mother's going to take issue with that. Her grace is not an excuse for our license, to live a life of license instead of a life of inspiration. So it's like that. So really what we have to guard inside is this laxness, giving ourselves permissions to be and do what we really wouldn't do if we were falling in love with God, if we weren't really moving toward the beloved, or had our bearings in the right way. So the master is laughing here, and he says that you're fine the way that you are, which is also true. There's other teachings coming into play here. We just read in Holy Mother's class yesterday afternoon that contentment is the greatest treasure. There's no treasure greater than contentment, and no virtue greater than forbearance. And so, yes, in that light, it's fine to be where you are. It is fine to be where you are, as long as you are moving toward mother, toward the divine. as long as you're not giving yourself license to do things that really aren't pulling you, you're just choosing to indulge, in them. And so keep this careful discernment going on in your mind. Keep yourself moving forward. Don't do things that cause you to backslide, that cause you to get stuck in a whirlpool that you've already gotten out of before. And so he goes on, though. He says, I tell you the truth. There is nothing wrong in your being in the world. There's nothing wrong with you if you're a householder, if you're living a worldly life. He said there's no problem with that. But you must direct your mind toward God. So live your life, have the things that you want to have within reason, as long as it's measured in your own mind by your relationship with the divine. That's your greatest treasure. Mother is your own. She's the only thing that's real in this universe. Try to keep that in your mind. Try to keep that in your way of thinking. That's how you will find your bliss. That's how you'll find your contentment in life. But don't feel like you can't be, that you can't just be who you are. Yes, be who you are, but be fully aware. Have your eyes open and go forward, and Mother will take care of that. He says, I tell you the truth, there is nothing wrong in your being in the world, but you must direct your mind toward God. Otherwise, you won't succeed. Otherwise you're not going to see your beloved in this lifetime. You're going to get caught in that whirlpool, and you'll lose your discernment. You'll lose your ability to understand what's right and what's wrong, and you'll start making crazy decisions. Do your duty with one hand, and with the other hold to God. After the duty is over, you will hold to God with both hands, right? And so at the time, yes, there's some distraction there. But even in that distraction, keep your mind on God. Do as much as you can of that. And then when Mother does lift your duties from you, when she sees your faithfulness and your longing for her, that's why Thakur that says that longing is so important. That's what moves Mother. From that perspective, that's what moves Mother, is our longing for her, our consistent desire to see her. Thakur even says that in this Kali Yuga, if a man can weep for God for one day and one night, he will surely see him. So that's all you have to do, is sit in deep longing for 24 hours, and the game of knacks is over. The divine is yours. It is all a question of the mind. Yes. See, we've talked about that many times. It's all a question of the mind. Bondage and liberation are of the mind alone. Very important point, very interesting point that really gels with kind of the whole direction we've been talking about over the last 7 months. The mind will take the color that you dye it with, right? It is like white clothes just returned from the laundry. If you dip them in red dye, they will be red. If you dip them in blue and green, they will be blue or green. They will take only the color you dip them in, whatever it may be. Haven't you noticed that? If you read a little English, you at once begin to utter English words. Foot, mit. Then you put on boots and whistle a tune, and on. It all goes together. Or if a scholar studies Sanskrit, he will at once rattle off Sanskrit verses. If you're in bad company, you will talk and think like your companions. On the other hand, if you are in the company of devotees, you will think and talk only of God. So here he's saying, leaving all the teachings aside, this is the situation. It's all a matter of your mind. If you give yourself license by making it God's responsibility, and you use that to go indulge in jumping into red dye, whatever your dyes may be, then you're gonna get colored. You're going to be changed. Your view of the world's going to change. You're not going to see Mother. You're not going to see clearly. You're not going to discern properly or rightly. So yes, it is in the hands of the Mother. Yes, it is a matter of grace. Know that and use that inspiration and that love and that kindness to inspire you to long for that divine presence. Use it to lead you into things that will dye your mind white or keep it white. You know, we all started with a white sheet. Now, whatever color it might be, you know, some of us have tie-dye at this point, but we just we just keep going forward. Grace is the bleach, as it were. All right. The mind is everything. Well, that's one of my favorite statements right there. The mind is everything. This is where I get that whole notion, or where I was convinced of that whole notion that we don't live in a world, we live in a mind. You know, that we can't verify an outside world. We live in a world of symbols of what the mind thinks is outside and how it presents it to us. So the mind is everything. A man has his wife on one side and his daughter on the other. He shows his affection to them in different ways, but his mind is one and the same, right? Good point there. Bondage is of the mind. Freedom is also of the mind. A man is free if he constantly thinks, I am a free soul. How can I be bound? Whether I live in the world or in the forest, I am a child of God, the King of Kings. Who can bind me? If bitten by a snake, a man may get rid of its venom by saying emphatically, there is no poison in me. In the same way, by repeating with grit and determination, I am not bound, I am free, one really becomes so. One really becomes free. Now, this is amazing.
Sure.
What's that?
I said a little bit of Christian Science here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's no poison in me. I mean, this sounds crazy on one level.
It does sound crazy. Yeah.
And he's talking about the power of positive thinking. I mean, that's kind of old, 1970s, but hey.
Yeah, no, and it works if there's depth to it. You know, it's not just saying that you're free that makes it happen. It's what happens when you say you're free inside, if you're saying it with conviction. And let's put it this way. Let's take Eckhart Tolle's world, where there's no past and there's no future. So if you sit in this moment and you deny a past, you're like, no, I will not let anything in my mind that comes from the past. And you do the same about the future. You will see that if you can possibly maintain that notion of no past and no future, there lies your freedom, because you're not within the world of cause and effect, for one, where Vivekananda says it's causation. As long as there's causation, there is no freedom. So the way to get rid of freedom, like we need a class on that. The way to get rid of our bondage, is to get rid of the samskaras, let go of the past, deny it, be free from it, and be free of the future, and be fully present in the moment, without a past and without a future. You're absolutely free. You can finally be what you are. That which is you will manifest in that. But as soon as we bring the mind back to its past and subject it to its idea of future, we're in bondage. And so if throughout the day you do pull aside for a moment, breathe, bring yourself into the moment, and repeat this verse to yourself. I am ever free, I'm ever pure, I'm ever blissful. Not just as words, but because you realize the present is all there is. God alone is real. What is God? God is the I am. God is this moment. God is free of past and future. He is, right? And if you bring that into the equation, as you say, I am ever free, I am ever pure, I'm ever blissful, bring that into the equation, along with the discerning notion, I am not the mind. I am not these thoughts. These thoughts do not define me. They do not judge me. They have no impact on me at all. They are only a thought, and you understand that everything is only a thought. You hold that conviction within yourself, and you remind yourself, I am free, I'm ever pure, I'm ever blissful. If you just do the words without understanding why it's true, it's like Thakur says, you can't get stoned by just saying, ganja, 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 ganja. You have to smoke it. You have to know it, right? It's like, and so it's the same way with spiritual life. Yes, you can sit there and go into that prosperity politics or whatever it is, that new movement in Christianity, but it ain't going to work if you don't understand what wealth is to the divine. And that's the big mistake. These people, they hear the word treasure and they think, oh, God will give us treasures. And yes, God will give you the greatest treasure in the world, but it ain't a checkbook. It ain't a piece of cash. It's freedom. It's contentment with what you have. There's not a richer man in the world than the man who's content with what she has or he has, And so these teachings, you have to understand the wholeness of them. They all work together. We can't pull one teaching out and make it true above all of the other teachings. Everything is in its place, and we come to understand these things and pull it in as a whole, and they make sense. So it is possible. I'm always afraid of, like, somebody getting bit by a snake and they're like, oh my God, I'll just say, oh, there's no poison in me, there's no poison in me, there's no poison in me. That's fine, you'll die, right? But if you actually are convinced, and I wouldn't say this if this didn't occur in all the other major traditions, like Jesus saying, if you have faith like a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, get up and throw yourself in the sea. And I say, verily, I tell you the truth, this mountain will get up and it will throw itself in the sea. So if you can know at your deepest, inmost hunch that this world is a dream, that mountain is not a mountain, that you are that, then these things are true. If you are not fully convinced that this world is a dream and that thou art that, you can tell that mountain to get up and jump in the sea all day long. It ain't going to go. It ain't going to go there. And so this is a statement made from different points of consciousness. There's levels of consciousness at which this will be true. And you see it in the Master's life, when he wanted to build that fence around the Panchavati, and suddenly everything necessary, the tools, the wood, the string, everything washed up on the banks of the Ganges for him to build that fence around the Panchavati. So you see, the Master was dwelling in that space where what he thought became true, because his mind was so pure that his thought and God's thought were one. And if God has a thought, it is. There's no lapse of time before its manifestation. As soon as it's in the mind of God, it's the manifested reality at that moment. So this is a beautiful thing, that your bondage is in the mind. So when you're sitting there and you're feeling all of that tenseness, it's yours to let go of. Let go of it. Give yourself permission to set it down. Chill out. I'm unaffected by this. This body's going to die. It's not going to matter, right? I remember doing this in college. Remember my story about my history exam that I didn't study for because I was so sick of studying. I just decided I'm not going to study. I'm going to bed. I'm going to get up in the morning and then I'll go take the exam. And on the way to the exam, I was stressing out like crazy. About halfway there, I was like, oh my God, what kind of fool was I? Why didn't I study? Good Lord. And on the way, I said to myself, I said, look, in 5 years, this is either just going to be a funny story or you pass the exam. He said, it's not going to matter in 5 years. Chill out and let go. And I went in. I don't remember. I don't think I did that great on the exam, but I don't think I failed it. But here it is, some 30 years later. It doesn't matter. I'm not stressed out about not having studied for that exam at all. And so keep things in context, and understand you have permission to set things down and to be new. At this moment, you can be whatever you want to be. It doesn't have to be based on your decisions of yesterday. It doesn't have to be limited by your hopes for tomorrow. You are ever free. You are ever pure. You are ever beloved. You are not bound. It's only your choice to hold on to your personality and the contents of your mind as being your own that makes you bound. When you obey their implications and your need for more and your desires for a different moment, you're bound. But you can set those things down when you want to, and you can be free. In the same way, by repeating with grit, and with determination. This is how you do it, not just casually wandering, repeating a mantra type thing. With grit and with determination, if you can say it, I am not bound, I am free. Thakur's promise to you right here and right now. If you do it with grit and with determination, I tell you the truth, one really becomes free. All right? It's a beautiful and important teaching. You are all powerful. All power lies within you. You know, all power lies within you. Vivekananda says that again and again. It's your decision. You can set this burden down anytime and be free. You know? Once someone gave me a book of the Christians. I asked him to read it to me. It talked about nothing but sin. To Keshab, sin is the only thing one hears at your Brahmo Samaj too. The wretch who constantly says, I'm bound, only succeeds in being bound. He who says day and night, I'm a sinner, verily becomes a sinner. And oh my God, if that doesn't prove itself true in the modern world, if that doesn't prove itself true in the modern world, you know, my goodness gracious.
Is he talking about like the power of words and affirmations, or is it something a little different?
It's more than that. It is the power of words and affirmations, but it's the power of saying those words with grit and determination, with a depth of severity on yourself. Like, yes, I am free. I am not bound. You know, it's like you take both of the bull's horns and say it with that kind of determination, that kind of grit. Yes, it's not just a matter of words. You know, there's other places where he tells us that, where he says, like the ganja story. He says you can't get stoned by just saying ganja, 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 ganja. There has to be substance to your words, right? There has to be substance to your words.
I have to interrupt. This is
Yes.
maybe a very scrupulous point, but whenever I read this passage, like it makes
Uh-huh.
sense in the context of my life. But what about those who've succeeded through the Jesus prayer? Those whose practice relies upon the perception of themselves as a sinner.
Uh, but the focus of the Jesus prayer is not you being a sinner. It's on the mercy,
Hmm,
on the grace of
got
God.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. I thought about that. I was like, I think that was the answer, but I didn't quite know if that was the right way to approach it. I think about that all
Yes.
the time. I was raised Catholic, so I'm like, well, yes, the sin stuff never panned out for me very well because I didn't understand mercy. So that makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the trouble is that, you know, I mean, that's the trouble with that teaching that emphasizes you, the sinner, as opposed God, the gracious, you know, and if you emphasize you, the sinner, you're in trouble, you know, because you're going to be beaten. You're going to lose confidence. You're going to lose the willpower that it takes to live a holy life, you know. And so, yeah, so that in the mind in yourself should always be on the grace of God, on the love of God. And, you know, uh, one of the things, you know, that I run into is that you have to make sure that you're always keeping your mind on the grace of God, you know, because it's one thing to let yourself fall into your bad habits and then pull yourself out of that situation by thinking about the grace of God. That's fine. It'll work, but you will be much better off if you keep your mind on the grace of God and prevent yourself from falling into your vices so that you don't have to then talk yourself out of it with the grace of God. You know. So be consistent all the way through and it will bring you to the divine. It'll bring you to the feet of the mother. But if if it's just that careful guarding, you have a treasure in you. Your pure nature, your divine nature is your treasure, and you have to guard that treasure. You have to prevent it from being colored or being forgotten or being misunderstood or being half understood. So really it's guarding what we already have as we clean it off and return to a knowledge of it. But we have to be very careful not to give ourselves an inch anywhere. it's a it's a hard teaching because the mind does pull both directions, like they said in that song. The divine mother's there, wink wink, she gives you the mind, but then she also makes it outgoing, makes it go to the senses. So we have to be careful. One should have such a burning faith in God that one can say, "What? I have repeated the name of God, and can sin still cling to me? How can I be a sinner anymore? How can I be in bondage anymore?" Yeah, that's how we do it. Put ourselves in the middle of grace and I'm untouchable by those things. How could I sin right now? How could I choose my vice over purity at this moment? How could I do that and sit in this divine grace? And if it's later on and you're recovering from a fall, how could I sit here and feel guilty and feel remorse for a thing that's already gone, something that's just finished and gone? And now I sit here in the presence of God. I will not sit here and ruminate about my weakness anymore. I'm in the grace of God. I will get up and go forward. See? So we constantly keep our mind in that way. He says, if a man repeats the name of God, his body, his mind, and everything become pure. Right? And what is purity? Purity is that minimizing me and mine. That's purity. So it's not all of those other puritanical ideals. It's me and mine that gets diminished by the thought of God, by the thought of the beloved. Why should one talk only about sin and hell and such things? Say but once, O Lord, I have undoubtedly done wicked things, but I won't repeat them, and have faith in his name. Sri Ramakrishna became intoxicated with divine love and sang, if only I can pass away, repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O Blessed One, withhold from me deliverance, wretched though I may be? Right? So keep your mind always in the grace and the love of God, and your weaknesses and shortcomings will take care of themselves. They are not part of your nature. They are not natural to you. And so by constantly reminding yourself of your nature, of your freedom, of a faith in the divine presence, we go forward. We transcend.
Mommy, please repeat your definition of purity. Because I think pure is like cleanliness or something. So this is good.
Yeah, no, a pure mind, the purity that brings us to God is selflessness. So a pure mind does not have any me and mine in it. That notion of me and mine. That is our one and only fatal error. Is believing in me and grabbing what's mine.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you discern and look at all of the possible sins out there, which I don't really want you to think about, but if you were to think about them and you would see that it's selfishness that's at the heart of all of them, the me and mine, that you define yourself, you define your me as a body mind, and then all of your shortcomings, all of the limitations and restrictions that come along with that, make you feel like you're not complete, make you feel like you're not whole. And you go out to get what's yours. You go out to make yourself whole. And all of the vices, if you're going outward through the senses for that quest, you leave paradise. You leave paradise. You leave your notion of contentment and the divine. And you're constantly hungry. You'll constantly be suffering. But eliminate that me and mine. Understand your nature as contented and full that this world, material world, sense objects can give nothing to you, and they can take nothing from you. You can only be distracted. That's the only power of Maya, is distraction, forgetfulness. So yeah, that me and mine is the impurity that we're concerned about. It manifests as all the other things that we've talked about being impure, but the actual impurity is me and mine.
Thank you, Swami.
Sure. All right. It's perfectly fine to be in the world. Just keep your mind on God. Keep your mind on your beloved, and everything will fall in its place. And we'll all, I was going to say we'll all party together in heaven, but I don't know, that's somehow kind of a weird thing to think, but
Yeah, Swami, you told me, yeah, sorry.
No.
It all kind of reminds me of how we talk about the musical instrument being tuned just right. So if we beat up ourselves too much, it's just too tight, and it doesn't work. And if we let ourselves loose and the string is too loose, and it doesn't work either. So the stringing just has to be at the right thing by, and that I think that's what's keeping the gaze on Mother or on Thakur means it's strung just right. So
Yeah.
slowly you'll make the music.
That's it. And don't, there's always so much to say about all of these ideals, because it's all tied together, it's all one whole. But even in the keeping our instrument tuned, if we just place ourselves in the presence, that will happen. There's a million things that we could get caught up in having to tune about ourselves. Oh, I should be more selfish. I have to remember to be more grateful. Oh, I should open the door for everybody. Oh, I'll buy lunch for someone. I should, there's a million things. That's not the way.
Yeah.
The one necessary thing is the presence, remembering the presence of the divine with.
Yeah.
And the instrument will stay tuned. Music will come. So, all right.
Okay.
You want to have a question or concern?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Thank you.
Be well, everyone.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swami. Have a good night.
Thank
you too.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.